This podcast was proudly brought to you by Bioceuticals, leaders in nutraceuticals and education for healthcare professionals. This is FX Medicine, and I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. And with me on the line today is Keonie Moore, who is a naturopath who graduated in 2006, so 9 odd years experience. Keonie combines her expertise as both a practitioner that cares deeply for her clients and her innovative business skills. Keonie's been able to achieve what few do in the natural medicine industry, which is a thriving multi-modality clinic that doesn't rely on her seeing clients to be viable. Clinically, Keonie has a reputation for results and has become specialised in oncology support, particularly for people aiming to prevent cancer, access adjunctive care during conventional treatments, or recovery programs aimed at reducing recurrence post-treatment. Keonie is very passionate about sharing her success with others and works as a member for other natural health practitioners and clinics. And Synergy of Success, or SOS, her mentoring business, is a platform to allow a sharing of expertise and business modelling that has seen ReMed achieve its success. Committed to a world where the role of complementary medicine practitioners are valued, Keonie is dedicated to creating a thriving, not surviving, business culture. And I truly welcome you here today, Keonie, because I'm so impressed by what you've achieved over a very short period of time and ethically. Welcome, Keonie.
Thanks, Andrew.
Keonie, it's a common mindset in the naturopathic industry that you're not going to be able to make a decent living, and it's a more of a cottage industry mentality or a pauper mentality. But you've really turned that on its head. I think first, though, we need to go back where it all started for you, because I'm imagining that would have been in naturopathic college. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I studied at Southern Cross Uni in Lismore, and actually went to that institution because I had planned on going to research. So I, throughout the whole degree, had planned into going to honours and PhD. And then I got to my final year in clinic, and apart from a 7-year journey to get there, I really fell in love with being in clinic, and it was actually only in my last 12 months of study that I realised that I was going to become a practitioner. And so that was certainly a bit of a challenge to realign all of my goals and dreams, because I've been sort of working in one direction. And then to realise how much I loved interacting with clients and really helping empower people within their health really started this journey that I'm on now.
So, Keonie, you finished. What happened next?
So within 2 weeks of graduating, I relocated my family to Melbourne. So we're living in northern New South Wales at the time,
right?
With the intention of starting my practice. So we moved for a number of reasons, but primarily because I wanted to be in an environment where I felt a practice could thrive. So I looked at a number of different aspects that suited both myself, the family, and my aspirations to own a clinic. And so I moved into renting a room out of another clinic, always with the intention of building my client base and then getting a foundation that would allow me to launch into my own clinic. So it was always my intention from the time that I moved to Melbourne. And I did that. So it took me 3 years to build up my client base. It grew quite rapidly, and I certainly developed that profile as an individual practitioner and was booked up. And I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. I'm ready to launch my dream, ReMed, the natural approach to medicine, which is my clinic now.
Yeah.
And so it was that time when I launched a clinic. I got receptionists, I got a bunch of practitioners, and I was like, wow, this is my moment defined. Like, my dreams and aspirations have come true. But I guess it was a hard sink back into reality after that moment. And over the next 18 months, I certainly found out what I didn't know and where my strengths were not. So, and, you know, what I realised is that running a clinic had absolutely nothing to do with being a good practitioner individually. And so I was struggling because I needed a whole lot of skill sets that I simply didn't have, which ended up really me working harder, longer hours for less pay. So I went from working 4 days a week to 6 and was seeing 50 to 60 clients a week, often doing my own reception whilst seeing clients. And it was definitely in a negative cycle around working to pay the bills for the clinic and having a whole bunch of practitioners that really weren't contributing to the overall, well, it wasn't success at that point, or survival, I guess, of the clinic. And so 18 months after I opened, I really hit breaking point. And there was a defining moment in my life where I locked the door one evening and just crying because I never wanted to go back to that place. And so the dreams of being a clinic owner where, you know, I'd have all these practitioners working for me, I'd mentor them, and I'd be able to go on holidays while the clinic just, bumbled along, and that I'd have more time with my family was certainly not the reality for me at that point in time.
So what happened to change your determination? What happened next? Because I remember you telling me this at the Bioceutical Symposium, and it actually quite choked me up. So what saved you?
Well, it was really a close call, because I really didn't want the clinic anymore. So it was so close to me completely throwing in the towel. And it just happened to be that I'd been in contact with someone who really stepped into me at that point and said, I see the potential in you, and I think that you've got the foundations for what's something that could be great. You've just got to look at things in a different way. And so she became my business mentor and actually ended up buying into the business, and we're still business partners to this day. And she was a very trusted ally for me in that she really got me to turn around my mindset. And I think what happened is that no one else within my clinic changed. It was me that changed. And so rather than, I guess being in that negative thought cycle that I was talking about where I just worked more and more and became more resentful and this whole kind of a chain of events that was a vicious cycle, was actually to break out of that and then look at things in a way where I could be a leader and change the way that I was leading, change the way the business modelling was set up, and change the culture. That
wouldn't have happened overnight, though, would it?
Oh, no.
So what period of time transpired between you locking that door and then changing you?
It was very challenging to look at yourself in such a raw, honest and vulnerable way and see that the only way out of that problem was to take complete responsibility for the culture within the clinic. And so it was an 18-month to 2-year process of building skills around how to be a leader, how to be able to manage a business, what areas I had not done well prior to that point. And not because I didn't want to, but simply because I did not have the skills in place at that point. So it was a very big learning curve to quickly get up to speed on a whole lot of stuff that I didn't even know that I didn't know. And I think that's the trickiest thing. If you don't know that you don't know it, then it can be difficult to even know where to access the information or the knowledge that you acquire.
Okay, but there's been other attempts made at business development, some quite commercially based, and some of them are indeed about selling more stuff to patients, and I just can't condone that approach. So how is your approach different?
there's two really important aspects there. I think the first one is the business modelling and culture. That's the foundation of Remade, which is that it's a win-win-win is a model that I've developed to really portray some of these aspects of going, we don't have to win at the expense of somebody else. And so if we look at what's very common in the industry, is that we have a large bulk of people who really feel uncomfortable with making money or making an income from the profession, and then a subset of people who are really happy to it, sometimes at the expense of others. They're two polarities of the same thing, but I think where the dream is, where my values are strongly connected to, is that how can we create clinics that propel practitioners into a rewarding career, clinics that are sustained by a collaborative team that contribute to the overall success of the clinic, and the clients get delivered healthcare that changes their life. So for me, having a thriving clinic does not mean that we oversell or overservice the clients. I guess the other aspect is that, and this is something that a lot of people that have worked with me talk about, is that I have built a business from scratch. I have built a clinic from scratch. So I guess there's when we talk about from scratch, I've borrowed $5,000 to start the clinic from my mother, which is amazing when I look at, what it is now.
Yeah.
And so in some ways that made it really hard for myself. But in terms of, I guess this business does have my blood, sweat and tears. And I can relate to a lot of the challenges faced by both individual practitioners and clinic owners, because I've experienced a lot of the same challenges.
Yeah, this is the thing I think that it is so great about you, is that you really have come from the dark days into the bright light. So tell me, what's your life like now? What practice numbers, retention of clients? Let's talk about not just your life, but your practice as well. How's it changed?
Well, I can't even compare to, when I think about how much I was working, say, at that pivotal point in the clinic where I nearly threw it all in. Now I work myself seeing clients 2.5 days per week, and that's mainly because I choose to, because I love my clients. But certainly in terms of the practice, we have 7 naturopaths, 4 massage therapists and chiropractor, and 8 admin superstars. So in terms of, we've really built a big team that's very collaborative and contributes to the success of the clinic. And one of the biggest things is that my ability to see clients, the clinic is not reliant on that. So it's something that I do because I love to. And I contribute probably 10 to 15% of the overall turnover of the clinic, which then actually makes the clinic viable without me, which is a really nice feeling, to know that I can go away for holidays and have time off, and that's not going to have a significant negative impact. In terms of client retention, we basically measure everything, and so our minimum client retention is 80%, but at the moment we're tracking at 87%, which is certainly, I'm very happy with that. And we have, we have professional development that's ongoing, both within the reception team and our practitioners, about providing best patient outcomes. That is definitely part of that foundation of client retention. So if you get really great results, then client retention and even referrals from our current client base are quite strong.
And this is the thing, is like when you spoke about the win-win-win, the patient has got to win. And you don't
Absolutely.
overservice, you do it by helping their health.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the other things you do, though, is you also help your staff as well. I've heard you talk about taking them away, being able to actually take them away for holidays.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do, and we always look at this win-win-win model. So whenever we do something that is good for one component of that model, then we look at how can we make it good for everyone. So we might set financial goals, and the end of last financial year was a good example. We had a financial goal that we were going for. And when we hit that, and we let everyone know, so that the other thing I think is we're very transparent about how we run the clinic. All of the practitioners that work here know exactly how much we've turned over, what goals we've got on the table, because they're included in the overall business planning. And so when we hit those goals, then we share the rewards with everyone. So one of the things that we did is we took everyone away overnight with their partners to a winery, stayed in nice accommodation, went out to dinner, and had a weekend away, which was a really lovely way to celebrate and share that with the whole team.
Keonie, that all seems well and good, but some sceptics might say, well, hang on, you've now got a financial goal. Aren't you biased towards reaching that financial goal rather than servicing the health of your clients?
I think it's a really interesting question, and it comes from these extremes that we see within the industry where there's a lot of discomfort around making money. And, for the bulk of the industry, certainly not for 100%, but I think if we always work from a place of integrity that our client outcome, so a patient-centric model where it's always about the best outcome for the client, then the planning and the goals is more around the big picture. So a really good example of this is recently we put our prices up. And so if you look at going, okay, well, if we put our prices up, that's good for the clinic, that's good for the practitioner, but it's bad for the client. So then we actually sit down and have a brainstorming session with all of the practitioners and say, okay, how can we improve our service to our clients? So when we put our prices up, we're going to invest something that will develop and innovate our patient care. So what we did with the most recent one is that we invested in a nutritional analysis program, and we now do that as standard of care for every single patient, where they get a full dietary analysis of their nutrient intakes. So this is how we make a win-win-win. So it's always offset, okay, we need to do something extra special for clients if we're going to impact it financially.
And now, indeed, you mentor others into how to develop successful practices and, indeed, ethical businesses where both patients and practitioners can sleep. So tell me how you've achieved this.
Well, it really started with colleagues coming in saying, what have you done? Because, like people that I graduated with or perhaps they graduated before me and really just my brains were going, well, I'm experiencing this challenge. And what was really fascinating for me is that through all of those conversations, what I realised is what I went through in that very dark time is exactly what everyone else is going through. We're just not talking about it. And so when I went through that period of time, I thought I was the only one. And I thought that this had happened because I had failed. So it was, certainly to me, I felt like it was a reflection on me individually and didn't really realise that there's this whole collective of people going through a very similar experience. So that's what really started going, okay, well, let's start setting up a platform where we can share expertise. So because what I've found is the people that are doing well don't necessarily share the knowledge or their expertise with others.
Yeah. And
for me, I just feel very passionate about, does everyone really have to go through and make the same mistakes? So does everyone really have to go through the challenging, very deeply challenging time that I did, when I can help people take a shortcut. And I think that it's really part of the development of the industry being taken seriously as healthcare professionals is that we're able to work some of this, these basics around business and really have some thriving clinics that are able to really impact, I guess, healthcare on a global scale. So I mentor a clinic that's geographically located very close to mine, and lots of people ask me about whether that's a good idea because there's a very strong competitive mindset.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fine with it because we've got a lot of work to do. If you look at chronic health concerns, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, they're all on the rise. We've got a lot of work to do in healthcare.
Yeah.
And so if that clinic does well, if more clinics do well, then that's actually better for my clinic when we start lifting the profile of professionalism within the industry.
I totally agree with you. What can a fledgling naturopath, though, expect to invest in business development like you have and career planning indeed? Is it affordable, only for the already rich people? How does it happen?
Absolutely. And I think that definitely if we look at the education aspects, that there's very good foundations as practitioners, but not necessarily as business owners. And a lot of us didn't realise that we were going to be business owners at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with an awareness around what are your strengths and what are the areas that you don't have, the skills that you're going to need, and really being open, I guess, to learning about what you can do differently. And so one of the things that I work with training people about is the difference between external business factors and internal business factors. And that's a really interesting concept because often we go, it's because we're not registered. It's because people can't afford to come. Blame the government. Like there's all the reasons are always external to ourselves. But that disempowers us in creating a thriving environment within our practices. So looking at those internal factors and how can I change my knowledge base, how can I improve my skill set is really where that starts. Accessing the right information has always been a little bit difficult because if I look at what I've spent on business consultants, business mentoring, business coaching, I have spent the same amount as my HECS debt for my degree. So I think that for most people is not sustainable. And that's definitely part of why I've developed Synergy of Success as well, because I really wanted to create a platform of sharing expertise in a way that was accessible to the people that really need it. Because at the moment, a lot of business coaching is accessible to people that have already had some level of success, but we're sort of starting at going, okay, for individual practitioners in clinics or just graduating, how do they access some of the practical business skills that are really essential to a thriving environment?
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be taught, and not just in naturopathic circles. I've heard that same quote in medical circles and in pharmaceutical or pharmacy circles, that nobody teaches them how to develop a thriving business or practice. Yeah. And I might put in, by the way, that often those people who are skeptics, touting that naturopaths are pill pushers and things like that, I find it's really interesting that these are very often the exact pill pushers that have a thriving business themselves and put their kids through private schools and have no qualms about blaming others, but never look at themselves. Yeah. I think it's very interesting.
It is interesting, and I think there's definitely that aspect, and then compounded by the lack of education around a lot of these issues means people are just, it's really random about who is able to make it at the end of the day.
So do you think it's a random? Like, can anybody take on Synergy of Success and build a successful practice? What are the risks if they did that?
I do believe anyone can take on a practice and be successful. And I guess when we talk about whether it's random, that's really without any education or any skill building around business. So if we look at graduating from school and then who makes it and who doesn't, is very rarely related to whether they're a great practitioner or not. And I've seen that myself with people that I went through uni with.
Yeah.
But it's really about accessing the right information. And so certainly if we talk about Synergy of Success, it's looking at accessing what does that individual need. And so it really comes back to looking at the health of the business. So I think about it in naturopathic terms, where we do an assessment, we might run some tests, and then we do an action plan or a treatment plan. It's the same concept of what we do in Synergy of Success. It's looking at, okay, where are the areas that are creating obstacles to success within the practice? How do we improve those? So sometimes that's training, or, marketing plans, or having a plan to start with is a great idea.
Yeah.
So with anyone can be successful, because it's really about having the access to the information, the expertise that you need. So that's really dependent on someone's ability, not so much to be successful in practice, but look at themselves honestly and objectively and go into places that sometimes may be a little bit uncomfortable, and a level of commitment. So if we look at a client that comes to us and says, I didn't follow any of your recommendations, I've taken half of my herbal remedy and I haven't implemented any dietary changes that you recommended, their success and their health outcomes is going to be impacted by that.
Yeah.
And so it's the same concept with business of going, it does take commitment. It does take focus and an investment of time. But for those that are willing to make that commitment with access to the right information, can absolutely be successful.
So where can practitioners find you? Or indeed, if they wanted to do it themselves and they wanted to just embark on a new thing and look at a business coach themselves, how do you find a good one?
It's a very interesting question.
I mean, you were very lucky that somebody recognised potential in you and they took an interest in you. Yes. But how would that duplicate in, Perth?
Absolutely. And so I guess I would always consider their own experiences to be quite important. So for someone who is looking for a business mentor or a business coach, looking at where their expertise are, is it at least in a service-based business, preferably in a like I guess me being a naturopath, I mentor predominantly other naturopaths because I really understand the strengths and challenges of practicing in that field. So I think that does give a really strong foundation of someone who has been able to create that for themselves, has had the experience of being able to build a practice. And I'm not the only one, so there are other people that have had that experience and have worked really hard, blood, sweat and tears into a clinic. But I guess it is about changing a little bit of that mindset that it doesn't necessarily have to be really hard. And that's where I feel so passionate about sharing what does work, what doesn't work. Let's not all make the same mistakes and actually start talking about how we create a thriving culture.
I couldn't applaud you more for what you've done, and in such an ethical way. You know, I got to say, I was so impressed when I first met you, and you told me about, you know, the things that you disdain in the industry about certain ways that things have been done. And I love the way that you engender that win-win-win. It's got to be all for the patients. So, Keonie Moore, yeah, I just couldn't be more impressed with you, Keonie. I thank you so much for joining us today on FX Medicine.
Thank you, Andrew.
This is FX Medicine, and I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today on FX Medicine, please engage with us and let us know what further topics you'd like us to cover. You can get in contact with us through our website, fxmedicine.com.au, or look for FX Medicine in your favourite social media platform. You can also rate and review us on iTunes, and we'd really like to thank those who have already rated us. It's through your continued support that enables us to bring you current, complex and relevant topics to enhance your practice of natural medicine.